Well, we're back and we have our skeleton, and I'm going to start to populate this website with some assets. So I'm going to put in some text, I'm going to put in some pictures, and I'm going to start actually with a little bit of CSS. All right, so we talked about a wrapper. Now a wrapper is going to center our site, and it's going to make sure that our site doesn't extend beyond a certain boundary. So in other words, in a humongous screen, it won't become humongous, and on a normal size screen, say a laptop screen like mine, it will be it'll be a contained space. Okay, so how am I going to do that? Well, in between the body tags, I am going to put a div. Okay, and I'm going to give it the ID. Remember, we're only going to use this once, so I'm able to give it an ID. The ID is for use only once in your website. So div ID equals, and I'm going to put in quotes wrapper, and then I'm going to close that tag. Now, where should I close this div? All right, I'm going to close it right before the final body tag, because this div encloses our entire website. So I have an opening div here, and I have a closing div here, and that's going to be our wrapper, our container for the entire site. All right, now let's do some CSS. So in Dreamweaver, so I'm going to go to styles.css, and you can see that these are linked right here. It shows me my source code and it shows me my styles right underneath all of these pages so that I know that they're linked, which is really nice. All right, so I am going to start actually by putting in a background color for the body tag. So I'm going to put in my brackets. So it's a little bit hard to see. And so I'm going to use the property body. I'm just going to use the property background color, not body background, but background color. And this is really nice, I have a built-in color picker here. And since I don't necessarily want to use one of the named colors in CSS, I'm going to choose the color picker. So that's a nice feature. Here, let me get that back there. Okay, going to go to the color picker. Now the cool thing about the color picker is it will allow you to save any of those colors. So I am going to choose kind of a tan color, because it's sort of an orange tan color, but I'm not going to make it too dark. And I'm going to make it a little bit less intense, so it's sort of jungly. All right, so this color I'm going to save. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, and boom, it's saved right there. So there's the plus sign. If you didn't see that, that'll save whatever color you want. And I'm also going to choose a color for my wrapper right now, because I guess I might as well. The wrapper is going to be a little bit lighter and a little bit less saturated. I don't think I want it all the way gray, but I want it light enough so you can see it. So I'm starting to create my color palette here, as you can see. So but this color is going to be my wrapper color. And notice I can have it RGBA, hex, HSLA, and I'm just going to take the hex code right here. And there it is. So I'm going to make sure I put my semicolon. So that's my body with a background color rule. And I'm now going to create the wrapper that is going to center and contain the entire site, and it's going to have a color as well. Now, if we really wanted to get tacky, we could put a body background photograph, and I would not suggest that. I think clean design is better, so we're not going to go there. All right, so I'm going to put in my pound sign, which denotes, and look, I get the tooltip, which denotes an ID, wrapper. Here's my brackets. And I'm going to give that a background color as well. So here's my code hints, background clip, background color, background image, don't go there. background color, I'm going to go to the color picker and I'm going to choose the lighter color that I chose a little bit earlier. And I'm going to give it a semicolon to make sure I'm correct. Okay, and as you can see, it put in the background color there, so that's cool. Now, what I want to do is contain the size. So I'm going to put in background size. Notice those code hints. So I'm going to give this a size in pixels. So it's going to be 1024 pixels wide. And it is going to have a margin, here we go with our code hints, of auto, which centers the site. Now notice I can have margin on all four sides, but all I need is margin here. All right, so there's our CSS. So now we've just created our body and we have an ID for the wrapper. So I'm going to go ahead and save, and I'm going to preview this in the browser. So I'm going to go ahead and preview it in Firefox. And yes, I do want to save those changes. Okay, so this isn't working exactly the way I want it to. It's responsive, as you can see, but background size isn't doing it for me. All right, so this is where we're going to go to something called the wonderful CSS Designer. All right, this is a really awesome feature of Dreamweaver. It's absolutely totally cool. And I'm going to go under Window, and I'm going to go to CSS Designer. Okay, so the CSS Designer, if I narrow it down and dock it, for example, I can dock it right here, it comes up in one column. But I like to actually see what I'm doing, so I drag it out. And that gives me two columns. So notice both CSS selectors that I have are right there. So my ID of wrapper that's what I'm going to be working with. And you can see it highlights it for me. And I'm going to take out background size. And I am going to instead look at my CSS properties. For those of you who are visual as I am, this will actually show you every single type of CSS, including all of the advanced properties like rounded corners and shadows if you want that stuff, which I usually don't, quite frankly. Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to look for, okay, what's the best, what do I want? Okay, so we have layout, typography, border, background, and everything else. So I'm going to go up here to layout. Okay, so what I really want is width. I don't want background size, I want background width. So the width, I'm going to set the width in pixels, and it's going to be, right now it's 0 pixels, you can see what that did to my site. And I'm going to make it 1024 pixels. Okay, much better. So that's as big as that site is going to get. And while I'm at it, now the text is sitting right here smack in the center of the screen, and there's no padding, it sticks on the edge of the site, and that's kind of ugly. So now instead of coding all this by hand, see I'm still in the layout area, I can go to margin, padding, and position. Okay, so remember, margin is outside, padding is inside. And we want to work, this is responsive design, so although we want the background to stick to 1024 pixels wide no matter what, we want our margin to be a percentage value, because we're going to use type size, we're going to specify that in ems, and we're going to specify our margin in percentages because we want all of our percentages to add up to 100%, so everything floats and clears the way we want it to. So I am going to give us some padding I'm going to give us a padding of 1% all the way around, and let's see what that does for it. Let's see if we like it. So, and I can click this little lock, and I can make all of the padding 1%. So I'm going to give us 1% all the way around. And that looks good. Okay, I like that much better. So this is our wrapper is our main container. I'm going to go ahead and just move this out of the way so you can see the wrapper is our main container. And now we have a little bit of space between the edge of the box and the beginning of the type. So let's go ahead and save that. And if I go to live view here, that gives us some information, but it's actually a little bit easier and more efficient to preview it in the browser. So I can preview it, and it's very important to preview in multiple browsers. That's a big deal. So I'm going to go to Firefox. Oh, looks like I didn't save my CSS. So I'm going to save my styles.css, save my index.html, and now I am going to preview in Firefox. There we go. That's 1024 pixels wide. I can go bigger, and it's not going to become any wider. I can go smaller, and it does clip. All right, so that's something that we can deal with later. So for example, if we're on a mobile device, we might want that to flex a little bit more. For right now, it's okay because we're still just learning. All right, so now we've created our background. We've created our margin of auto, our margin of 1024 pixels, and so now we have our main site content, and we're going to put some stuff in the header. Now I happen to have gotten some information about Jaguars and a whole bunch of pictures, so let's start to populate our home page. So close this out, back to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to go to split view at this point. All right, and I'm going to dock the CSS Designer because first I want to put my content in, and then later I'm going to decide how I want it to look. So I'm going to go back to my source code for index.html. So I put in my wrapper, and now I have header. All right, well, I happen to have made a little logo with a baby jaguar. Okay, so remember the insert menu? Without writing the code, I can insert an image. Okay, so it knows automatically to go to my Dreamweaver website sample. I'm going to click images. And actually, you know what? I made a little boo-boo there, and I didn't put the logo in images. I put it loose in the folder. So that was, I really do need to move that. But I'm not going to do it right now. So I'm going to click logo.jpg. Jaguar facts. Now I don't need, so it's Jaguar facts for kids. Okay, content for new header tag goes here. Well, we don't need that. So now there's our logo, Jaguar facts. I'm going to go under my list site, and I'm going to grab some content. So instead of main site content information on Jaguars, I am instead going to go to a document that I have created, and we're going to put in some text. So we're going to start with some introductory information about Jaguars, and we're going to go ahead and format it too. All right, so I'm just going to copy that from my source material. Now I am also going to credit the source of my source material because it is from Defenders of Wildlife. So in between the two main tags, I'm going to place that source material. Okay, now this is not that pretty. All right, so let's first give it some paragraphs. All right, so we're going to put a P tag where we want a paragraph, and where I want that paragraph to end. Jaguar is no pussycat. They're also skilled swimmers. Looks like that would be an excellent place for a P tag. There we go. Largest feline in America. And we'll put a /P tag there. I'm going to make another paragraph here. There's my closing P tag. And making a difference is going to be my headline. I'm actually going to move that up to the top. So I'm going to make that an H2. And I'm going to make my last paragraph tag. Okay, now this last paragraph tag, it goes before the main tag, because remember the main tag is enclosing all of our content. All right, so we're going to save that. Don't be fooled by this crazy space here. It's going to close up once we preview the site. All right, so we also have to put some footer information, and I'm going to put in the copyright information for my source. So I'm going to put in the and copy. That gives me the copyright symbol. And I'm going to put a P tag. Actually, maybe not a P tag. Maybe I'll use an H3. And this comes from source, defenders of wildlife. And I'm going to close out my tag. And there I have my footer. All right. There it is. Now notice this came on separate lines. That's kind of awkward. I am going to put my copyright symbol inside the H3 tag, and that way it'll be on one line. Much better. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now let's go ahead and style some things. So I'm going to style the P tag, and I'm going to style the H1 and the H3 tags, and I'm going to do that using the CSS Designer. So I'm going to go and undock my CSS Designer, and so whatever you select, it will try to create a tag for you, but what I want to do is hit plus, and see, look what it gives us. It gives us kind of junk. It gives us wrapper main P. So basically that's all of the tags that are enclosing that content. And all I want is P. So I'm going to hit P. I'm going to delete everything else, and we're going to style the paragraph tag. And while I'm at it, I might as well go ahead and style the, see, don't be fooled by that junk text there. I might as well style the H2 tag and the H3 tag. Hit plus again. Get rid of the junk, H3. All right, now we're going to start to see some differences here. So I have my paragraph tag. All right, so now we're going to go into the CSS Designer, and we're going to click T for text. Okay, so I don't know that if I want black text, so I'm going to use a dark brown. And I'm going to hit plus and save that. So I'm developing my color palette still. And I want to make it a specific typeface. Okay, and look, it auto updates for me. That's really nice, isn't it? Okay, font family. Remember about font stacks. All right, font stacks. So we are probably going to add a Google font in a little bit, but let's make a font stack. Okay, so it gives us some default font stacks, and we are going to pick, honestly, I don't like any of these font stacks. So I'm going to go with, I would like to go with a sans serif, so I'm going to alter one of these. All right, so I'm going to start with Helvetica. I don't know what Gotham looks like, so I'm going to start with Helvetica. So I want Helvetica New as my main typeface. its fallback is Helvetica, fallback to that is Arial, its fallback to that is any sans serif typeface. Okay, cool. All right, now let's start. This looks good as far as a text size. It is a little bit big, but since it's for kids, that's okay. Now, we're going to use another property here called line height. So line height is the space between lines, and in typography that's called leading. So we're going to use line height, and I'm going to use that in ems. Now remember, ems are a variant of, and responsive and dependent on what we have before. So notice when I put nothing in there, all my text went, whoa, crazy. So I'm going to start experimenting here. Right now we have 0 ems. I'm going to put in 1 em, and that's going to be crazy. That's relative to our normal size. So I'm going to put in let's try 1.25 ems. Let's try 1.5 ems. So this will flex. Okay, so that's nice. That gives us a little bit of a lighter look to our typeface. Okay, now font size, we want that to be responsive too. So I'm going to use ems for that. Right now we're at 0 ems. That didn't work very well, did it? We're going to put in 1 em and see how that looks. Okay, so 1 em gave us the normal size, which is around 12 points, and I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. So we can use fractions when we use ems. So I'm going to try 0.75 ems, and honestly that's a bit small. So I'm going to use 0.85. Okay, that looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now let's go ahead, now we've styled the paragraph tag. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to style the other tags. All right, so H2, remember H2 in importance it's of higher importance, and it will be read by the search engines more, it'll be read by the search engines first. So instead of making a difference, I'm going to put in the words Jaguars. We want Google to know that it's Jaguars making a difference. Jaguars making a difference. It occurs to me that I should have used Panthers, but anyway, I'm sorry. All right, so now let's go back to the CSS Designer and let's style the H3 tag. All right, well, first of all, we want it to be a color, and I'd like it to be, I'm going to flip to type here in the CSS Designer, and here are the colors I have so far. I wonder what it would look like in the background color. That might be cool. Too light. All right, so we're going to go back and just adjust that, and I'm going to hit plus. So this is the color that we want. Okay, font family. All right, now at this point, I think it's time for us to go to the Google fonts. There's also, if I go to, no, there's another thing that we haven't really talked about, and those are the Adobe Edge web fonts. They're very similar. I'm not going to use one of them here. I'm going to use a Google font, but if I go to Font Family and I go to Manage Fonts, these are all the Adobe Edge web fonts. So again, I can sort by serif, sans serif, whatever I want, maybe something blocky. And all of these are available online 100% of the time, just like the Google fonts. And if I don't find what I like here, I can go to the Google fonts. It's really your choice. It's maybe we'll do one of each. So I'm going to use I'm going to use Chunk. Okay, so I'm going to hit. So I have Chunk, and I'm going to add that. And now under Font Family, it should give us chunk. Now, sometimes this can be a little bit fussy, which is why I prefer the Google fonts. So chunk should have showed up right there. So let's go to the Google fonts. All right, Google fonts. fonts.google.com, and let's look for that something a little bit. We're going to take serif. We're going to use sans serif and display. All right, I'm going to use this one. Okay, so I'm going to hit the plus. Boom, one family is selected. If I move up, I'm going to embed my HTML. So I'm going to copy that, move back to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to put that in my head tag. And then I know where, it also tells me where to put that in my CSS. So let's go back and flip that. Font family equals Fiala 1 or Fiala 1, however you want to pronounce that, sans serif. All right, flipping back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to go to styles.css. So H2, it got a color, and now it's going to get a typeface. Okay, I like that, and I like it for H3 too. So I'm going to copy the CSS, and I'm going to use the same color and typeface. Okay, so right now this sizing looks good to me. I might want to change it in the future. I'm not going to do that now because I want you to see something. I'm going to go ahead and dock the CSS Designer here. There, when I get the double blue line, it docks. Let's look at code view here for a second. So I'm going to save, and I want to show you something that here's the deal. When you use the CSS Designer, you have to clean up some of your code. So it will sometimes add code that we don't need. So what code in here could we possibly not need? Well, our padding value is the same on all four sides. So I don't need padding top, padding right, padding left, padding bottom, padding left, padding right. I just need padding. Padding 1%. All right, so let's go back and look at the split view. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to save it, and now let's preview this in the browser. Look at it in live view first, make sure. Okay, so we still have quite a bit of work to do on this, but you've learned the CSS Designer, and so real-time preview, we're going to preview it in Firefox. Save changes. All right, there she is. Okay, and you'll notice all of our links are working too. I'm going to end up populating this with quite a bit more content before I come back on video, and then we're going to style the CSS in the next video. All right, so thank you for watching. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you again next time.